Policymakers are working towards a more sustainable and eco-friendly energy supply, but it will not happen anytime soon. While renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and hydropower are great for the environment, it's important to remember that we can't completely rely on them just yet. Some investors got carried away with the idea that we'll all be driving electric cars and using only renewable energy sources in the near future. However, it's important to keep a clear understanding of the facts. Time for a reality check. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Geopolitics and Money. In this video, we'll give you 10 facts about our energy supply that will blow you away. Ready? Let's go. Number 1. Oil and natural gas still account for 80% of global energy supply. When the number of electric cars would increase hundredfold by 2040, the demand for oil will decrease by 5%. This is because oil and natural gas are used for much more than just transportation, and the demand for these energy sources in other sectors is expected to remain relatively constant or even increase. The transition to renewable energy sources will likely take many years and involve a complex interplay of economic, technological, and policy factors. Number 2. If we want to reduce our consumption of oil and natural gas by 2%, it will require a $2,000 billion investment in renewable energy sources. Oil and natural gas are currently the dominant sources of energy, and they are deeply entrenched in many aspects of our economy and infrastructure. This means that transitioning to renewable energy sources will require significant investments in new technologies and infrastructure. While the costs of renewable energy technologies have declined significantly in recent years, they are still generally higher than the costs of fossil fuels. This means that achieving a 2% reduction in the consumption of oil and natural gas will likely require a large investment in renewable energy. Number 3. If the world's poorest 4 billion people increase their energy consumption to 1/3 of Europe's per capita energy consumption, their demand for oil and gas will be double that of the United States as a whole. Many of these poor people currently have very low levels of energy consumption, and increasing their consumption to 1/3 that of Europe would represent a significant increase. Imagine if they would all start to consume the same amount of energy as the developed world. Number 4. Aircraft today use 70% less fuel than they did in 1995, but the increase in the number of flights, which has grown tenfold, has resulted in a 50% increase in fuel usage overall. While a more fuel-efficient car may save you money on gas in the short term, if you end up driving it 10 times as much as your previous car, you will still end up spending more on fuel overall. Number 5. On average, Western countries have a 2-month supply of oil and gas reserves, but only a 2-hour supply of electricity reserves. Oil and natural gas are often produced in large quantities and stored in reserves that can be accessed as needed. These reserves allow countries to have a buffer of energy that can be used in the event of an unexpected disruption in supply or an increase in demand. Electricity, on the other hand, is typically produced as it is needed and is not easily stored in large quantities. This means that electricity reserves are much smaller and are typically only enough to cover short-term disruptions in supply. Number 6. To make enough batteries that would allow us to store 2 days of electricity, Tesla's Gigafactory would have to run at full capacity for 1,000 years. Tesla's CEO Elon Musk said an annual production capacity of up to 100 gigawatt hours was possible, and then possibly increase to 200 or 250 gigawatt hours. Number 7. It costs about the same to build a shale oil facility as it does to build 2 wind turbines. However, while the shale oil facility can produce the equivalent of 10 barrels of oil per hour, the 2 wind turbines can only produce 0.7 barrels of oil per hour. This is because shale oil is a high energy density fuel, meaning that a relatively small amount of it contains a large amount of energy. Wind turbines, on the other hand, have a lower energy density and are therefore less efficient at producing energy. This means that the shale oil facility is able to produce significantly more energy per hour than the 2 wind turbines, even though the cost of building them may be similar. Number 8. It takes about 60 pounds of batteries to store 1 pound of oil/gas. Electricity is a form of energy that is less dense than oil or natural gas. This means that it takes more volume or mass to store a given amount of energy in a battery than it does to store that same amount of energy in oil or natural gas. Number 9. At least 100 pounds of material from commodity mines is needed to build 1 pound of battery capacity. Batteries are complex devices that require a variety of materials in order to function. These materials include metals such as lithium, cobalt, and nickel, as well as plastics and electronics. The production of batteries involves a complex process that includes the extraction and refining of raw materials, the manufacture of components, and the assembly of the finished battery. This process is energy intensive and requires a significant amount of material in order to produce a small amount of battery capacity. Number 10. It takes an energy equivalent to 100 barrels of oil to produce a battery that can store the energy equivalent of just 1 barrel of oil. This highlights again the lower energy density and higher production costs of batteries compared to oil, which can make it more expensive and less efficient to store and use electricity in certain applications. So, in conclusion, we can say this: we all want to move towards a more environmentally friendly, renewable energy supply. However, the reality is that we are still far away from being able to rely solely on renewable energy sources. Oil and natural gas will continue to play a significant role in our energy supply for a long time to come. This makes oil and gas stocks, even at their current valuations, an interesting investment opportunity. Additionally, the transition to a renewable energy system will require a significant amount of raw materials. That being said, let's compare the performance of some green energy shares to that of regular energy shares. It speaks volumes. The iShares Global Clean Energy ETF peaked in early 2021 and has since had to surrender almost all the gains of the years before, while the Energy Select Sector ETF bottomed in late 2020 and has since been rocking the house. And it has more than doubled its performance over the last 2 years. If this is not a reality check, then what is? Which fact surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to this channel so you'll be notified whenever a new episode gets published. Thanks for watching.